Some episodes of The Sopranos can be skipped during a rewatch, as strange as this may sound. Decades after it hit the small screens, The Sopranos is still considered to be one of the best television shows of all time, praised for its complex characters, intricate storytelling, and exploration of themes like family, power, and morality. The series' iconic legacy is hard to top. However, not every episode is crucial to the overall story, not even when it comes to The Sopranos. Even though the legendary series is known for its sharp writing and character development, there are some segments that, when revisiting, don't necessarily add much to the plot. Many of the episodes from The Sopranos' 6 seasons delve into sideline storylines and character backstories that don't really affect the larger arcs. While each episode ultimately offers something of value, fans rewatching the series might find themselves skipping over a few, focusing instead on the installments that drive the main story forward and build on the characters' emotional journeys. Down Neck. It's not an essential episode for a rewatch, and shedding light on his past is a good installment for exploring Tony Soprano's psychological background and shedding. When AJ Soprano gets into trouble, it causes his father to reflect on how his own childhood shaped his experiences. Now, while Tony's childhood flashbacks provide an interesting psychological insight into the mob boss personality, they ultimately prove that he hasn't learned much from his father's bad example. Moreover, the episode takes a break from the main plot, making it feel more like filler content. In comparison to other segments from the first season, Down Neck focuses on the less important parts of the story, especially for those who already have an understanding of Tony's family dynamics and might not need to revisit them in such detail. Commendatori follows Tony and his crew as they travel to Naples, Italy to secure a deal with the Italian mafia for stolen cars. Even though this particular episode offers a refreshing change of scenery and some cultural background to The Sopranos' Italian heritage, its detour from the core New Jersey happenings makes it a segment you don't have to feel guilty about skipping. As the rest of the second season explores the high-stakes tension between Tony and Richie Aprile, its 4th episode provided little to no character or plot development. Everything that went down in the old country did not have a long-term impact on the series. The car deal Tony's crew negotiated doesn't hold any significance later on, and his flirtation with Annalisa, the daughter of the Italian mob boss, leads nowhere. Ultimately, the episode feels more like a standalone side trip than a pivotal part of the story. With a heavy focus on the philosophical, psychological, and spiritual, From Where to Eternity might not be everyone's favorite episode of The Sopranos. Moltisanti recovers in the hospital after being shot in the previous episode. His near-death experience unnerves Tony and Paulie. The three of them ponder questions of guilt and the afterlife throughout the installment, which is quite an unusual take compared to the series' usual intense, grounded conflicts. Rather than serving as a pivotal moment in the story, From Where to Eternity tiptoes around the main plot, putting key events on hold. Despite being memorable for its bits of dark humor, this Season 2 entry objectively lacks any significant plot progression, which is why it could easily be skipped during a rewatch marathon. Arguably one of the most emotionally charged episodes of the entire series, the 4th installment of the 3rd season of The Sopranos, Employee of the Month, is still one. It focuses on Dr. Jennifer Melfi's traumatic experience with sexual assault, offering a deeper dive into her character and professional values. However, it largely deviates from the mob-focused main narrative. Throughout this segment, Dr. Melfi wrestles with the temptation to tell Tony about the attack. Ultimately, she chooses to lie to him, yet her ordeal still takes center stage in the episode, dominating the storyline. If she had told Tony the truth, including that she knew the identity of her attacker, her trauma might have tied more closely to the series' overarching plot. Based on Tony's obsession with Dr. Melfi, he would have surely taken revenge. The 4th season of The Sopranos lays the groundwork for several storylines that would later be crucial for the development of the show. The 2nd episode, No Show, was truly a no-show. It delved into Meadows' struggles with her future, Christopher's rise within the mob, and Adriana's messy involvement with the FBI. However, despite the notable character moments, the episode fell flat in terms of high-stakes drama and pivotal moments. While it touches on some personal and professional tensions, the installment mostly features recurring themes like Meadows' disappointment and Christopher's ambitions, which are better explored in later episodes. Adriana's increasing ties to the FBI add tension to her storyline but remain under wraps here. Rewatching No-Show might be helpful, but the segment doesn't offer much new for die-hard fans. Another episode centered on guilt and morality, Everybody Hurts, follows Tony as he attempts to do good, and Artie Bucco gets caught up in a bad loan situation. While Artie's subplot adds some humor to the segment, the overall story feels somewhat disconnected from the main narrative of the show. So, for context, meanwhile, Carmela Soprano fixates on her marriage to Tony, reevaluating their relationship in terms of her personal values. She feels increasingly unfulfilled and emotionally neglected, which is a recurring theme in her character arc. Though all of these storylines add depth to the series, they feel rather repetitive. Tony's moral conundrum, always overshadowed by his self-interest, and Carmela's ongoing discontent and willful ignorance remain present throughout The Sopranos, making this particular episode feel slower and not as essential when rewatching the series. The episode opens with Tony living separately from Carmela after their fallout in the finale of the 4th season. He struggles to adjust to the change while attempting to reconnect with Carmela and the kids. Despite his efforts, Carmela remains firm in staying separated. In what seems like a desperate move, Tony tries to pursue Dr. Melfi, but the two never get together. Additionally, Adriana continues to feel the pressure of being an FBI informant, but the storyline is still only briefly touched on in this episode. Two Tonys is more about character positioning than intense action or major revelations. It does shed light on Tony's mindset during his separation from Carmela, as well as Adriana's mounting anxiety and health issues, but other than that, the segment is largely skippable for those already familiar with the series. He is Ryzen. Tensions rise between Tony and Ralph, while Thanksgiving highlights strained relationships in Tony's personal and professional life. Mob Boss remains unwilling to forgive Ralph for the brutal murder of Tracy, a bada bing dancer who is carrying Ralph's child. While the episode builds off their existing animosity, it doesn't really add any new dimensions to their conflict. The installment also touches on Jackie Aprile Jr. and Meadow Soprano's budding relationship, which is still in its early stages at that point and thus not explored in detail. Additionally, Jackie Jr. begins to show interest in joining the mafia, but his ambitions also remain at bay. Both storylines gain traction later in the season, but He Is Ryzen itself adds barely any significance to them. Interpersonal drama makes Irregular Around the Margins a compelling episode. Its impact on The Sopranos narrative is minimal. In this segment, Tony and Adriana, who is still an FBI informant at this point, flirt briefly, but nothing comes of it. However, after they get into a minor car accident, rumors about the nature of their relationship start swirling, spiking tensions between Tony and Christopher. The misunderstanding, even though it was almost something more, between Tony and Adriana ultimately created short-lived friction among the crew and did not lead to any significant outcomes. The episode also revisits familiar themes such as Tony's impulsiveness and Christopher's jealousy without offering new insights or breakthroughs. Still, although the mob boss was never the best of guys, his attempt to flirt with his nephew's fiancée stands out as one of the worst things Tony ever did. Luxury Lounge primarily centers on Tony's strained relationships with his crew, his family, and his associates. The mob boss can be seen contemplating his power and control, as well as questioning everything and everyone around him. In addition to struggling with his surroundings, Tony also has a hard time navigating his relationship with Dr. Melfi, who is still his therapist. Despite providing additional insight into Tony's psyche and his personal connections, the episode appears to mainly function as a pause between more pivotal events in the series. Much of the content felt like filler, leaving much to be desired in terms of plot progression. As a slower-paced segment centered on unsustained storylines, don't have any significant impact. Luxury Lounge is one of the Sopranos episodes you can skip when rewatching the show without missing anything significant.